The invisible theft. Imagine waking up one day and realizing someone has been stealing money from you every single month. Not by hacking your bank account, not by robbing your wallet, but slowly, quietly, professionally. And the craziest part? Most people never notice it happening. They blame supermarkets. They blame corporations. They blame wars. They blame bad luck. Meanwhile, the real mechanism keeps operating silently in the background. Today, we are going to uncover one of the most important economic concepts in the modern world, the Cantillon Effect. A system that transfers wealth from ordinary workers to people closest to newly created money. And once you understand it, you will never look at inflation, banks, housing, or the economy the same way again. What is the Cantillon Effect? The Cantillon Effect is simple. When new money is created, not everyone receives it at the same time. The people closest to the source of new money benefit first. Everyone else receives the consequences later. That is the entire game, and that changes everything. Because prices do not rise everywhere instantly. The first people who receive new money can still buy assets at old prices. The last people receive higher prices after the money already spread through the economy, which means the order matters. Who gets the money first matters. And that creates winners and losers. The story begins in 1720. To understand this system, we need to go back 300 years. Paris, 1720. France was drowning in debt after endless wars and massive royal spending. The country needed an economic miracle. Then appeared a man named John Law, a brilliant and charismatic banker from Scotland. He convinced the French government to try something radical: paper money. At first, people loved it. Money became easier to access. Investments exploded. Speculation exploded. Everyone thought they were getting richer. Sound familiar? It looked very similar to modern bubbles. Bitcoin mania, meme stocks, tech bubbles, real estate booms. But one man stayed calm. Richard Cantillon, an Irish banker living in Paris. He noticed something nobody else fully understood. Printing money does not create real wealth. It only redistributes purchasing power. And then he discovered the key insight. The people who receive the new money first become richer before prices rise. Everyone else pays the price later. That became known as the Cantillon Effect. The simple example. Imagine a small village. Suddenly, a gold mine is discovered nearby. The miners become rich first. They start buying meat, wine, land, and goods. Business owners then receive more money. Prices start rising. But a farmer living 50 kilometers away has not received any gold yet. He only notices that food, tools, and materials suddenly became more expensive. His income stayed the same. This is exactly how modern money systems work today. Modern version: central banks. Today, we do not use gold mines. We use central banks, especially the Federal Reserve in the United States. When the economy slows down, central banks create massive amounts of new money. Not by physically printing cash, mostly by creating digital money with computer systems. Then that money enters the financial system. But here is the important question. Who receives it first? Ordinary workers? No. Usually. Major banks, financial institutions, large corporations, investment funds. That is the injection point. The closer you are to that point, the more you benefit. What happens next? The new money flows into stocks, real estate, financial markets, luxury assets, and asset prices rise. That is why stock markets can hit all-time highs while ordinary people struggle to pay rent. Because the stock market is not the economy. It is often a reflection of liquidity entering financial assets. Meanwhile, rent rises, food prices rise, housing prices rise. Daily life becomes more expensive. But salaries rise slowly, very slowly. And that creates the feeling millions of people now experience. I work harder every year, but life feels more expensive. That feeling is real. Why the rich benefit more? Because wealthy people usually own assets. They own stocks, businesses, real estate, investments. When central banks inject money into the system, those assets rise in value. Meanwhile, ordinary workers often hold cash savings, salaries, bank accounts. And cash loses value during inflation. So one group owns things that rise. The other group holds money that weakens. That is one of the biggest hidden wealth transfers in modern history. Now the question becomes even bigger. If this system exists, why are houses becoming impossible to afford? Why do giant corporations keep growing? Why do salaries stay behind inflation? And why does the system seem designed to reward people who already own assets? Why modern life feels more expensive? For decades, the middle-class dream looked simple. Work hard, save money, buy a house, build security for your family. That formula worked for generations. Today, for millions of young people, it feels almost impossible. Housing prices exploded, rent exploded, living costs exploded. And many people ask, how did this happen? The answer is deeply connected to the Cantillon Effect, how cheap money changed housing. After major financial crises, central banks lowered interest rates close to zero. Money became extremely cheap for large institutions. And large investment firms noticed something important. Residential housing could become a giant investment machine. Massive funds started buying homes everywhere. Not because families needed them, because assets rise when money floods the system. Now imagine this situation. You are trying to buy your first house. You saved for years. Then you enter a bidding war against $1 billion investment fund. You use your personal savings. They use nearly free borrowed money. Who wins? Usually the fund. And this happened on a massive scale. The rental economy. Something even more important happened next. Large institutions bought homes, then rented them back to ordinary people, which means families stopped building ownership. Corporations accumulated more assets. Monthly rent transferred wealth upward. This slowly creates a society where fewer people own productive assets, and more people permanently rent. That changes the structure of society itself, the new corporate game. The Cantillon Effect also changed business competition. In healthy capitalism, companies survive by making profits. Bad companies fail. Efficient companies grow. But cheap money changed the rules. For years, investors poured billions into companies that lost enormous amounts of money. Why? Because money was easy to access, and growth became more important than profit. The Uber example. Think about a small local taxi company. Profitable, stable, reasonable prices. Then arrives a giant tech company backed by billions of dollars. That company can afford to lose money for years. Why? Because investors keep financing losses. The local company cannot compete with a business willing to burn unlimited cash. Eventually, the local competitor disappears. The giant company dominates the market. Prices later increase. Cheap money helped create monopolies. The WeWork disaster. One of the best examples was WeWork. At its core, WeWork was basically renting office spaces. But investors valued it like a revolutionary tech company. Its valuation reached tens of billions of dollars. Despite massive losses. Why would investors allow this? Because when money is extremely cheap, investors become desperate for returns. And during easy money periods, logic often disappears. Then interest rates rose, reality returned, and many of those companies collapsed. But early insiders already became rich. Again, the people closest to the money benefited first. Why salaries fall behind. Now we reach the most personal part of the story, your salary. Many people think, if there is more money in the economy, salaries should rise too. In theory, yes. In reality, salaries react slowly. Economists call this sticky wages. Prices move fast, salaries move slowly. That creates a dangerous gap, the inflation timeline. Here is how the process often works. Day 1. New money enters the financial system. Day 30. Stocks and assets rise. Day 90. Real estate prices rise. Day 180. Material costs rise. Day 360. You notice groceries, rent, fuel, and daily life became much more expensive. Then you ask for a salary raise. But companies are also facing rising costs. So your income increases slower than inflation. This means your purchasing power falls, even if your salary number rises. The hidden tax. Inflation acts like a hidden tax. But unlike normal taxes, people rarely notice who caused it. If governments announced, "We will directly remove 10% from your income," people would become furious immediately. But inflation quietly achieves similar effects over time. And because the process is complex, most people blame the wrong things. Meanwhile, governments reduce the real value of debt through inflation. That is one reason inflation becomes politically convenient. Two different systems. Modern economies increasingly operate with two different sets of rules. One system for ordinary people, another for giant institutions. Large corporations often receive bailouts, financial support, emergency liquidity. Small businesses? Many simply disappear during crises. Profits are often privatized. Losses become socialized. And ordinary taxpayers eventually absorb the cost through inflation and debt. This is why many people feel the game is unfair. Because in many ways, it is. So now comes the most important question. If the system works this way, how do intelligent people protect themselves? How do wealthy individuals position themselves differently? And what practical strategies can ordinary people use to stop being crushed by inflation? How to protect yourself. At this point, some people become angry. Others become hopeless. But the smartest response is neither. The smartest response is understanding. Because once you understand the rules of the game, you can start positioning yourself differently. You may not control the monetary system, but you can control how you react to it. Rule 1. Cash is melting. Keeping some emergency cash is necessary. Everyone needs stability. But holding large amounts of idle cash long-term can become dangerous during inflationary periods, because inflation slowly reduces purchasing power. Money sitting still often loses value over time. That is why many wealthy people move capital into assets instead of holding excessive cash. Rule 2. Own assets. This is one of the biggest differences between rich and poor financial behavior. The wealthy usually own businesses, stocks, real estate, scarce assets. Why? Because assets often rise during inflationary periods. Meanwhile, people holding only cash usually lose purchasing power. The system tends to reward ownership. That is why financial education matters so much. Rule 3. Understand debt. Most people are taught, all debt is bad. Reality is more nuanced. Consumer debt can absolutely destroy people. But strategic long-term debt attached to valuable assets can work differently, especially during inflationary environments, because inflation can slowly reduce the real burden of fixed debt over time. This is why governments themselves often rely heavily on debt. Understanding how debt works is critical. Rule 4. Become hard to replace. Since salaries react slowly, one of the best protections is increasing your value. Develop rare skills. Learn technology, communication, sales, business, finance, AI tools, strategy, creative skills. The more valuable and difficult to replace you become, the more bargaining power you gain. Do not think like an employee only. Think like a one-person business. That mindset changes decisions completely. Gold and Bitcoin. Throughout history, people searched for assets governments could not easily create from nothing. Gold served that role for thousands of years. Because gold cannot simply be printed. Bitcoin later emerged with a similar philosophy: limited supply. Whether people love it or hate it, Bitcoin represented a massive reaction against unlimited money creation. Both gold and Bitcoin are often seen as alternatives to inflationary monetary systems. But no single asset is a perfect solution. The most important thing is understanding the system itself. The real lesson. The biggest lesson of the Cantillon Effect is not fear. It is awareness. Most people spend years learning subjects in school, without ever learning how money works, how inflation works, how central banks work, how assets build wealth, why financial education matters. Yet these concepts shape everyday life. Understanding money changes how you see work, saving, investing, debt, housing, opportunity. And once you understand the rules, you stop moving blindly. Final conclusion. Richard Cantillon understood something extraordinary 300 years ago. New money does not benefit everyone equally. It flows through society in a specific order, and the people closest to the source usually benefit the most. That mechanism still exists today. Only now it operates through modern financial systems, central banks, institutions, and global markets. The question is no longer whether the system exists. The question is, what will you do now that you understand it? Will you remain financially passive? Or will you start learning the rules of money, ownership, investing, and financial intelligence? Because the future increasingly belongs to people who understand how money actually works, and financial education is no longer optional. It is survival. If this video changed the way you see money, economics, or inflation, subscribe to MindConomy Academy. We break down complex financial concepts into simple lessons anyone can understand. Like the video, share it with someone who needs financial awareness, and comment below. Do you think most people are closer to the source of money, or farther away from it?